So let's talk about how the overtime started, because this was the first time the new overtime rules were in effect. And I mentioned the double overtime or second quarter of overtime, however you want to describe it. Why don't you give us the nuts and bolts of what happened? Because had this been a previous Super Bowl prior to the rules, 49ers are winning for the first time since 94. Instead, Kyle Shanahan is now 0-3 when being up by at least 10 points.
Well, no, they wouldn't have won it because they only kicked the field goal. If they had gotten a touchdown the first drive, they would have won under the old rules. But this was the first postseason game under the new postseason rules where both teams are guaranteed a possession. We all remember the 13-second game that went to overtime because of legend Harrison Butker. A lot of people forget that part about the 13 seconds is that the game was
ironically saved the Chiefs.
Harrison Butker. And so the Bills did not get the ball in that game. Everybody raised a hoo-ha, and they changed the rules so that
they raised a what?
They raised the stink. They raised the stink. So the NFL said, all right, we're going to switch it for the playoffs only. I think this is why a lot of people saw a lot of tweets about the overtime rules. What's happening? People are confused about the clock. What happens if it hits 0? They were surprised the Chiefs weren't in a bigger hurry. And I think word got to Romo because he explained that with about a minute left. And so both teams are guaranteed a possession no matter what. If the 49ers had scored a touchdown on that first drive, the Chiefs also still would have gotten the ball, even though 2 years ago that the 49ers would have won with a touchdown. Now, because of the new rule where both teams get the ball, and I think this is probably going to lead into just a total discussion on Kyle Shanahan and the fact that he just loses the biggest games, is that you probably want to kick off in overtime now.
Why?
Because you want to kick off because it's kind of turned into a college overtime.
Game theory, baby.
If the Chiefs, if Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers kick off here, right? Now the Chiefs go down and let's say they score a touchdown, let's say they kick a field goal, whatever. As long as they score points, you're the 49ers, you get the ball back knowing you have to go for it on fourth down every single time. So you're getting a bonus down. The team
you're three quarters.
The team that gets the ball first isn't going to be playing with that aggressiveness. They're going to be playing more timid. They're going to punt on 4th and 2 from their own 40 because they're going to afraid you give the other team the ball in field goal range, they can just end it with one kick. So there's definitely we don't have, I guess, the data to back it up because this is the first game, but I think college coaches.
John, we do, because college football, in overtime in college football, you always give the ball to the other team first, hoping they kick a field goal, you score a touchdown, you win.
And so I think the only thing that would, and I'm sure Kyle Shanahan will be asked about this after the game, is that maybe he's thinking if both teams score, now you have the ball third and it's sudden death, and that is an advantage, but that's only if you make it to that third possession of overtime, which overtime almost never makes it to 3 possessions. So, I really think that Shanahan should have kicked off, and he didn't, and here we are.
Yeah.
It felt a little bit like what we see when we talk about why do these teams keep going for 2 points when they're down 14. So you can do the math as you go through the process.
What percent of people do you think knew the overtime rules going into this overtime?
I mean, 0.3.
Yeah, definitely.
Agreed. Very low, very low.
And that's the thing, is that maybe Shanahan didn't really have time to think about it, because you in your head.
Do you think Shanahan knew the overtime rules when he decided to say we'll take the ball?
Yes,
I think he might not have.
I think he knew the rules. I don't think he had a lot of time to think about it, because there was no way. You're starting practicing for the Super Bowl. You're not going to think, Super Bowl's going to overtime. There's been one overtime Super Bowl. Granted, Shanahan was a part of it, so God bless the man, because now he's got he's been a part of a 28-3 blown lead, the first Super Bowl ever to go to overtime in that Falcons-Patriots game. He blew a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter of the Chiefs in Super Bowl 54, tied for the second largest blown lead in Super Bowl history. And he has now blown a 10-point lead in the Chiefs in Super Bowl 58, again, tied for the second largest blown lead in Super Bowl history. So if he didn't know this, there should have been someone on his sideline telling him, hey, because there's a 2-minute break between the fourth quarter and overtime. So you do have time to think about this. And so someone should have said, hey, coach, there is probably, it would make a lot of sense to kick off here if we win the coin toss. And they didn't do it. So, I mean, we can go backwards from that, but that really felt like once they made that decision, it was like, nope, Mahomes will get the ball second and the Chiefs are going to win.
So there were a lot of winners in this game outside of Kansas City. A few of the losers, and Breach, you passive-aggressively pointed this out to our colleague Katie Mox, that the last 3 members of the Pick Six in some capacity to
let's leave Katie Mox out.
Hold on, to view their team in person have taken the L, starting with you, incidentally, and then of course Debo last year. And our Katie Mox was in the stands today, angrily yelling at you as she should have been.